It's hot.
Worldwide, faith-based, community-driven streaming media. This is the Voice 17104.com from the Allison Hill District of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Now broadcasting community radio from Studio A and community television from Studio B on the Voice 17104.com.
Welcome, my brothers and sisters, to the Richard James Show on 17104, The Voice. Greetings. Greetings and salutations. Welcome, my friends, to the Richard James Show. I saw tomorrow marching by on little children's feet, and in their forms and faces read this prophecy complete. I saw tomorrow look at me from little children's eyes, and oh, how carefully we teach if we were only wise. We are truly blessed today to have an author, a lecturer with us, Tabitha Wilson. Tabitha, welcome to the Richard James Show. And
Thank you. Hi. How are you?
I'm doing fine. And we have a promotional video that was developed by Tabitha that we want to raise up, and then we're going to get into an intense dialogue. We're dealing with the issues of autism and bullying today. Let's first do the visual. Go right ahead.
This is not just any book.
The reason I know about her story is because I edited her book.
The journey was unbelievable.
It's power packed. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat the whole time.
There is a lot going on with children with special needs and children who have been bullied. Things that are going on behind closed doors.
The power that came out of you, just what I read, I almost felt like you were breathing down my neck. I said, girl, woo.
This book really had me on an emotional roller coaster because it affected my own children. And no one wants to see their child go through any craziness like this.
When I read the story, it was, it was a page turner, and I felt your passion for your children come through those pages.
My transparency is going to be the one thing that I know is going to make the difference. Parents need to know because their child's lives are at stake.
I went through so many emotions editing that book.
There were so many things that went down in this story that should have never happened, and so many things that could have been prevented.
One thing I saw through this book, a thread, was accountability. The lack of accountability in people who had a hand in her children's lives.
Yeah.
And so she had to advocate on a whole nother level. But when I tell you she went to the nth degree for these babies, I promise you that's exactly what she did.
This book is not just for parents who have a child with autism, and it's not just for parents who have a child who has been bullied. This book is literally for everyone. No matter what capacity you work in, this message needs to be spread.
Ladies and gentlemen, when we say advocate in the depth of a mother's love, because I felt like I wanted to run through the pages and come and help. I had anxiety after I read each chapter, and I was like, okay, if I'm just reading it, she's living it. My God, please be a fence.
The only way a change is going to take place is if everyone is aware and they know what's going on so that they can make a difference.
When I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, you got to get it when it comes out. It is a page turner. It will make you mad. It will make you cry. It will make you, stand up and say, she's my shero.
This book is meant to help families all across the world because you need to know what's going on.
Again, I felt your pressure through the page. Like she said, it's not just for people who have autistic children or children who are being bullied. I want people to see this book, read this book, share this book, and pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
Excellent, 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 excellent. You got me excited now. Repeat the title of your book.
No Cross, No Crown, A Journey Through Autism, Bullying, and Spiritual Warfare.
All right, I'm ready to get on that journey and to get on that road. I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. Okay, first of all, let's introduce the author. Tell me something about yourself, your history, your background, your education, the reason you wrote this book.
All right, so I'm Tabitha. I go by Tabitha, and I am from South Jersey, a little town called Elm, in between Atlantic City and Philadelphia.
Okay.
It's so small that if you blink your eye, you actually miss the whole Elm experience. So it's a very small town. I grew up in the country. Neighbors had cats, and neighbors had chicken and sheep and goats, and we had lots of cats and dogs. So I definitely appreciate animals. I had a real childhood. Okay, I made mud pies, I caught lightning bugs in jars, and I climbed trees and hung from branches. So we didn't have social media back then, and I really had a great childhood. I went to a Catholic high school in Hamilton, New Jersey, and from there, I wanted to go to Howard University. The high school I went to, it didn't have a lot of African Americans. So, I didn't really have a lot of African-American people that I was exposed to. And I chose Howard University because I wanted that experience, the Howard experience. So when I went to Howard, my mom took me there to visit. There were more African-Americans in one spot that I had ever seen in my entire life. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like unbelievable. And it was so amazing because up on the top of the hill was the School of Business, and all the students were walking around with their suits and ties, and down in the valley in the medical school, all the students were walking around with their lab coats and their professional, attire, their stethoscopes. And it was just so amazing to see such a progressive place. So that's, I was like sold. I was like, I have to go to Howard. So I went to Howard, and I received my first degree in clinical nutrition. So I worked as a dietitian for about 5 years. And when I was working, actually, there's a lady named Dr. Rowe. She's real popular nutritionist that I worked with for my first job. And we worked with AIDS research. And then I went back because I couldn't afford myself. So I went back to school, and I received a degree in as a physician assistant. So I worked as a physician assistant for about 25 years. And went back to get a master's from the University of Nebraska. Now, one other thing I want to mention about Howard that's really exciting, I went back to teach because I loved it so much. But when I was working, my first job was in general surgery. And believe it or not, the president of Howard University, Dr. Wayne Frederick, was a surgical resident when I was working at DC General Hospital. So I worked very closely with him. He taught me a lot of procedures and everything. So it's so amazing to see, great people coming from Howard University. You never know who you are going to be sitting next to in your classroom that's going to actually just be out there. So it's amazing. Yes, it's a great experience.
Wow, you had quite an experience and quite an education that laid the ground. Your children are very lucky to have you as a parent, as somebody that has the skill, plus the love. The journey, autism, bullying. It's just amazing that you picked those two topics. There seems to be a plague or a disease called autism. That's, almost like one of every 5 parents that I know has an autistic child. I have an autistic grandson, and a grandson that has special needs.
Okay.
Tell our audience. I think we all have an idea. Could you tell us exactly what autism is?
Okay. So autism is a neurodevelopmental condition, pretty much, and it impacts certain areas of children's development. And some of the main areas that it impacts are communication, cognitive function, socialization, social interaction, sensory integration, behaviors, things of that nature. There are a lot of children who have repetitive behaviors. Some children have aggressive behaviors. Some children are nonverbal, some are verbal. And then you have children who don't give direct eye contact. So the spectrum is so wide because no two children are alike.
Right.
That's why they call it the autism spectrum. And because no two children really are alike, it's a puzzle putting the pieces together, because when you're trying to treat these children, or at least treat the symptoms, because there's really no cure yet, when you're trying to treat these symptoms, what works for one child doesn't always work for the other. So that is why it's a puzzle, putting the pieces together.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's really clear. You know, your background in medicine has to be a help to you in terms of
It
being
is.
able to clearly
is.
understand this.
It is great.
Yeah,
But there's one other thing I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention, that even though autism, there's no cure, there are things that can be done to give parents hope. There are things that can be done, such as early childhood intervention. For example, my son was diagnosed at 2. And when you have that early diagnosis, you're actually able to get services a lot sooner, and children are even able to start kindergarten by the age of 3. So they get a jump start before their regular peers will start at age 5. So that's a really crucial, integral part of the development for these children, getting early childhood intervention, because before the age of 5, that is when children retain the most amount of knowledge. So that's important.
It appears to me that some of the autistic children that I've seen and known individuals are very intelligent.
They
very
are.
Intelligent, very
They
intelligent. That's what people don't understand. You know, they're not they're not someone who has a low IQ. They can have a very high IQ. Have you found that to be the case?
Well, I don't know about everyone's IQ, because like I said, everyone is different, but they have different strengths and abilities. They have a lot of different strengths and abilities. And, someone who may not be verbal may be able to draw amazing, or may be able to play the piano. Or even if they are verbal, someone who is verbal, they still have the ability to go to college. Children who are nonverbal have the ability, but it all starts with that early childhood intervention. And the part that I really don't understand is, I know that it's a shock to get this diagnosis, but at the same time, it's really important for parents to jump on that early childhood intervention and not be in denial for too long, because the longer you wait, the more difficult it is to get the child on task. So that's really important. But I'm not sure about the IQ, but I do know that a lot of these children do have a lot of strengths and abilities. So we call it different abilities, not a disability.
Yeah, what I was saying, not that they all have a high IQ or a low IQ. I'm saying they could vary. That one could be autistic and still have a high intelligence.
Absolutely.
Ability to learn. That's basically what I'm saying.
Yes.
The other thing is, how do you communicate? How do you get through to someone who has this social problem, this communication problem? How do you relate to them? How do you bring them services that they need to be able to bring them out so they can communicate and can share what's going on inside of them?
Okay, so, well, like I said, it starts with early childhood intervention. And what they do is they do an assessment of the child to see if, do they need speech therapy? Most children with autism do need some form of speech therapy. Right. So speech therapy is a huge part. So they will provide these services to them absolutely free in most states, from what I understand. And they will provide the speech therapy, occupational therapy, nutrition therapy, any services that the child needs to get them prepared to go to school. Now, as far as speaking to the child, a lot of times children can speak, and then you have those children who are nonverbal, but they are able to communicate through picture cards. There are other methods of communicating with those children that speech therapists work with the families in their homes so that they have a better understanding of what's going on with the child. And a lot of times when those children are nonverbal, that's when you see behaviors, because they're frustrated, because people don't understand what they're saying, and because they don't understand what they're saying, they start having behavior problems that become aggressive. And, for a child who looks typical and has autism, and if it's an older child, especially, younger children, you take your child to the store and they're not able to talk. People are in the grocery store, they don't know what's going on. And they're like, oh, that's a bad mom, or that's a bad child, but they don't know the story. Right. And then when you get older children, like my son, who has autism with behavior challenge, he's 18 now, African-American boy, behavior challenge, totally looks like a typical child. They will kind of not accept that type of behavior in society. And it's scary because, there's a lot going on these days. We know that. And if they see this child acting out, not knowing that he has autism, who knows what can happen. So it's challenging. It's definitely challenging, but there are ways to communicate. Oh, and another way, they have these voice boxes for some children who are able to speak through these voice boxes, because some of them have really low tone voices, and some they have typing devices as well. So those are all methods that are being used for communication.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's frightening to me because an autistic child in a situation like being in school can overreact, can sometimes strike out. And it worries me that with the problems that African-American males, for example, have with the police,
right,
that some of our children could wind up dead.
Right.
And then that really, really worries me. And that's one thing I worry about my grandson. I'm hoping that God will bless him. I was saying my daughter's doing everything she can to get the kind of services, and she's a teacher also, so she works with kids every day. But I just wonder, have you known of incidents where autistic kids have had problems with authority like that?
Yes, I can say firsthand, my son who has autism with behavior challenges, he has had definitely problems with transitional changes. So when he transitions from one activity to another, or one classroom to another, or one, television show to another, it's not easy for him to deal with the transition, and that can cause behavior if things are taken away. So when disciplining children, I don't condone, bad behavior with children just because. So, my son, he was on punishment. I've taken things away. You can't have your iPad for the rest of the day or something like that. But when you are doing that, you have to prepare them. They need to have notice, because you can't just take it away and all of a sudden expect everything to be okay. You take it, but you say, hey, look, so because you did this, you're not going to be able to have the iPad until you have to give them a time frame that they have to look forward to, because if they don't have anything to look forward to, then their whole world is going to crumble. So there are ways and methods that you have to deal with that, but it's all about knowing your child and knowing how your child is going to respond in certain situations. So that's very important. And then there are people out there, services that can help you to kind of get those things on track as well. But it's scary. I understand what you're talking about. I've been in that situation.
Yeah, very, 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 very scary. We have enough problems just being African-American. But coupled with autism and some of the other issues that we have to deal with, it's really critical that we have professional training.
Right.
And you're blessed to, just with your medical background and your background, to be able to yourself deal with the situation.
Yes, and can I add one more thing?
Yes.
The one thing that I wanted to mention about my background that really helped me was that I found that during the time when I was struggling with my son's behavior, I found that diet was a huge factor. Okay. And when I found that when he had certain foods, his behavior was extremely aggressive. When he had red grapes, when he had bananas, that made him, at the time we lived in Texas, and they built the homes with like windstorm requirements for the windows. And he would bang on these windows so hard, you would think that, they were going to collapse. And it was when he had these certain foods. So I started really looking at his diet and taking certain things out of his diet. And I noticed improvement, but the behavior never really went away. But he was nonverbal at first as well. But when I took the gluten out of his diet, that is when he actually started talking and saying words. It was amazing, because that for him was the key that unlocked his speech. But it doesn't work for everyone. But I would always say at least try it, because you just never know. It's a puzzle.
Yeah, and with your dietary background, you would be able to know that. I think that's excellent information.
Yeah.
Because gluten causes a lot of problems in a lot of
does.
people in different ways.
It does.
And to say that, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that could be helpful to people to hear that kind of thing. Give it a try.
Yeah.
Give it a try and see if it works. Because sometimes I know you got me thinking about the kind of food I give my grandson. I'm constantly giving them bananas, for example, because they love bananas.
Mhm.
And maybe the bananas is not that, and then you worry about how they're acting out. So maybe there's some connection between the banana and acting out.
Right, but every child is different. You have to remember that.
I
And then you
understand
have
that.
now there's more foods that are gluten-free, so it's a lot easier, but you still have to, oh my gosh, what happened? I'm so sorry. I apologize. Oh, can you see me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. I am so sorry. I don't know what happened. I thought I turned my phone off.
You're fine. Honey. Keep talking. You're fine.
Okay. So yeah, what was I saying? I'm so sorry. I
You're
lost my
talking
train.
about son and gluten-free foods and that kind of
Oh,
thing.
when you are doing a gluten-free diet, you have to also make sure that you look at all the other ingredients as well, because when you don't, there are other things that are in these foods that could be triggers, like maltodextrin is a huge one. And believe it or not, for my son, particularly corn was another factor.
Interesting.
Corn had him like doing some really weird stuff, and it caused gut problems. A lot of these children with autism have problems with their gut. They have digestive issues. So a lot of things, you really have to look at all of the ingredients, and some of the foods that we give these children as well that are prepackaged foods, they have traces of gluten. They have wheat or other names of wheat. So you have to really look at the ingredients. That's important.
Is wheat a problem?
Wheat is a problem. Yes. Wheat is a form of gluten. Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes.
So, well, what type of grain doesn't have gluten? Or is gluten?
Rice is the main one that I use. I use a lot of brown rice. They have brown rice spaghetti. They have brown rice noodles. They have brown rice everything. And then they have a lot of products that are using other tapioca. There's a lot of substitutes. They use soy. I'm not too crazy about soy, but there's a lot of different things that are substitutes for gluten that can be used. But definitely wheat and a lot of other names you have to look for that definitely have gluten. So
Wow.
yeah.
Hey, you're educating me. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I really did not know. I'm going to have to go to my nutrition book and check that out. I know my wife is probably aware of some of these things, but I need to be up on it also, because sometimes the kids are with me. So I want to be able to give them the right thing. Wow, that is absolutely amazing. How is your son doing now?
He's doing great. He is
Okay.
actually doing really great. And I'm so excited because, you had talked about children that were high functioning and able to do things. His IQ may not be the highest IQ, but this boy is amazing. I mean, I bought him, he was so fascinated. They have these strange fascinations, and he was fascinated with fire alarms. So I bought him this lot of like 15 or 20 fire alarms for like $75, something like that. You don't do anything with them, but he just loved them. They're metal fire alarms that you would see like hanging in like Walmart. They have to be wired to the wall. And he was a YouTube junkie. So he took a 9-volt battery and a piece of wire. And I don't know what he did to this thing, but this fire alarm was sitting on his floor in his bedroom, and it was beeping and flashing. And I'm like, how did he do that? So he is doing really great. He is actually, the school gave him a couple of jobs. They gave him a job delivering packages to the different areas in the school. He also works in the school store as a cashier, and he makes the school announcements. So he's doing awesome. I'm really excited.
That's the kind of thing I was talking about when I used the term intelligence.
Yes.
And when I'm saying, when you encourage them and you give them something to live for.
Yes.
And part of the discipline and the education has got to be the love, because that child's got to feel that he or she is loved also,
and feel like they are needed.
Yes.
They love to help people. Yes.
And I don't think you can separate love from being needed, because you do need this person. Because
Exactly.
you love them.
Yes.
You care about them. You want the best for them. But that is wonderful to hear that that your son is doing so well. So you live in Elm. You're from Elm, is that near Silver City? You ever heard of Egg Harbor?
Yeah, I was just actually there last month for a wedding.
Okay. I shouldn't throw that in, but that's just where my in-laws are from, the city of Egg Harbor, which is not far from Atlantic Sea.
Okay.
Well, let's kind of move around a little bit. I like to hear something about the issue of bullying.
Okay.
And if bullying, let's define what bullying is, and give me some background on bullying and how it's transpiring throughout the country.
Okay, so bullying is basically the misuse of power, where people, students, it's not just in the school systems, people being bullied in their job situations, but it's the misuse of power. And where they make someone feel intimidated in some way, forcefully, and make them uncomfortable, make their environment uncomfortable. That's pretty much what it is. Bullying can actually become very physical with assaults and things of that nature. So it's a pretty serious thing, especially in the school system now. It is all over the world, though. This is a topic that is all over. It has no limitations to it. It doesn't matter race, creed, nothing like that. And also bullying is very common with special needs children,
Okay.
So you see it in both populations. Although my son didn't deal with bullying, my daughter is the one who dealt with a lot of bullying in school, because kids are just mean. They're just mean. Jealousy, whatever the reason may be, they're just mean. And middle schoolers, they are just tough. That's a tough breed.
Yeah, I have a grandson that had to deal with bullying, and it's interesting enough. He has some special needs. He's not autistic, but he has some special needs. And interesting enough is that he also takes martial arts, and he's very good at martial arts. But he doesn't like to hurt people. He does not want to hurt people, and sometimes people take advantage of his kindness. He's a wonderful young man. This is one of my. I have 6 grandchildren, by the way.
Awesome! Congratulations!
I think it's unbelievable. I love my grandchildren. And each one of them have their individual personality. But I found that most of them, at some point, has to deal with bullying.
Yes.
And particularly in the school setting, somebody wants to be in charge. Somebody wants to take something that doesn't belong to them. But first of all, how do you deal? I mean, there's a couple of levels. Authority have got in the schools, it's their responsibility to deal with bullying. And then how you deal with it as a parent when that child comes home with their black eye or with something taken or their lunch money taken or somehow bleeding and they're afraid and they're shaking. How do you deal with it on that level? And then how do you deal with authority whose ultimate responsibility is to see that doesn't happen?
Okay, so this is all throughout my book. I'm telling you, it is all throughout my journey. I have dealt with bullying to the highest degree. It's difficult because it first starts at home, because when parents allow their children to get away with things like that, nothing's ever going to come from that, number one. Then the parent of the child who's being bullied has to know their child too. I know in this day and age, a lot of parents are very busy and going through a lot of issues with the pandemic and stressed and whatnot. But at the same time, school's in session and you just really have to know your child. So when your child comes home, not acting like they normally would, they're out of their norm, their characteristics are different, they're not eating, they may seem more withdrawn, quiet, very secretive. Just acting out of character, that raises the flag. You want to ask questions. Hey, what's going on? How's school today? Things of that nature. They may not tell you, of course, that they're being bullied, because me, especially my daughter, didn't want to tell me because she knew I was a proactive parent and I was going to be up in school the next day. And, kids, they don't want parents to get really involved, because then they don't want to feel like, okay, if something said, then they're a snitch. But it's important to get to the bottom of this stuff in the very beginning, because if you don't, when it spirals out of control, that's when you have real issues that end up with real problems. And when you're approaching the administration regarding these things, you have to just be a strong parent. Now, I will tell you that there are situations where bullying was just ignored, simply ignored.
Yeah.
There was no disciplinary action towards the child who did the bullying. And it was more like swept under the rug because They did not want to get the parents involved. When you get the parents involved, then it raises red flags. And, once you start raising red flags, and that takes you out of that element where you may be considered to be a wonderful school district. So things were not being reported, okay, the way they should have been. So that's when a hardcore parent advocate comes in. You just really have to get to the nitty gritty with it, because the professionals at schools have a responsibility, and it is their responsibility to make sure that they follow the bullying protocol. And when you don't follow the bullying protocol, then you're sending a misconstrued message to children who are being bullied as if, oh, it's okay that this happened to me. And it's not okay. It's just really not okay. So you have to be a strong parent. Writing letters was a big thing. For me personally, I love writing emails because it's a paper trail. And it's like, look, I told you this happened. That's what you have to do. A lot of times we don't want to be the problem parent, or we just, it's not being the problem parent. It's about your child being treated fairly. And if nothing is being done about it, then that's when you really just have to kick in, because the squeaky wheel, they said the squeaky wheel gets the oil or something like that. Well, it's true, because if you don't do anything, then you just don't get anything done. Bottom line.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
One thing we've got to make sure that our child's self-esteem is intact.
Yes.
Sometimes when they're bullied by other children, and any child that goes to school among other kids is going to get bullied.
Yes.
It's going to happen. You got to look forward to it. You got to deal with it, and you got to help that child on a day-to-day basis to deal with it. And it sounds like it is something that you really dealt with.
I did deal with it, and the thing about it is, like you said, you want to get involved, but at the same time, it's like you are doing everything in your power. And when things are not getting done, and your child's self-esteem and confidence is going down, then you have another issue on your hands. You're trying to build them up at the same time, then their grades start to spiral. And it's just not fair. It's just not fair when, the administration does not do what they are supposed to do, because that is their responsibility. And, as a parent, it's really frustrating to see your child just transform right before your eyes. It's really frustrating to see that.
And sometimes it's good to have your child in a diverse situation. But sometimes, I'll be quite honest with you, some whites don't totally understand African-American kids. They don't understand the culture, the language, the background. They don't know what certain forms of language mean to them. During the period of time when Donald Trump, and I'm gonna be straight up, I'm telling you, that's the way I am, became elected president, our kids were having problems everywhere, because some of these white kids felt emboldened to be able to attack and abuse these African-American kids.
Right.
I hold the school district responsible to make sure that Asian kid, that African-American kid, and Native American kid is treated equally the same. And it's an issue that the school district and the school itself has got to take up and help the children to do it, help them to understand each other and understand that, hey, respect each other, and no one has to be on top, that we're all equal.
That's right. You got it. That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bullying. I can remember, quite honestly, when I was young, and I was young at one time. I know that's hard to believe, but many years ago, many moons ago, I can remember being bullied on the playground, beat up, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was bullied too. I was bullied. And that is how I was able to really relate to my daughter's situation, because, I was a victim of bullying. And, even though, I always say, even though I'm older now, I still have flashbacks from the past, and it still hurts. And it's like, like putting a nail in a fence. When you put that nail in the fence, you can cover it, you can wax it, you can paint it, you can do all these things to try to fix it. But the reality is, that hole will never go away. You will always remember the hurt from that. So it's still very hurtful. And some of my bullies from the past had even apologized to me. Okay, yeah, that's nice, but they still hurt me. And it's something that could never be changed. But it did feel good to at least know they acknowledge that, hey, I'm sorry this happened. But yeah.
I'll be darned. I thought I was the only one that felt that. I felt the same way.
I was
I
bullied.
I can remember the people who bullied me. And
Mhm.
when they did and what they did, I have not forgotten. I'm talking elementary school and I'm almost
Me
6 years old.
too. Kindergarten. I remember it all. You don't forget. I mean, you just don't forget. I mean, I don't pray for like dementia or Alzheimer's or anything like that, so I won't
Oh.
forget. Well, I will forget, but I'm telling you, it's serious. And you know, when my daughter went through what she went through, the hurt and the pain that she felt, it transitioned to me, and I could feel her hurt. I could feel her pain, and it's just that motherly connection, I guess. But it was very painful.
Yeah.
Very painful.
But thank God they have you for a mom. You know, a lot of people don't have those kind of skills and interests. You know, some
I
people just
try.
don't take enough interest in their children.
Yeah.
Men sometimes especially don't take enough interest in it. It's okay to work and bring home the bacon, so to speak, but you
Right.
better stay there and help them eat it.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
the only way
absolutely.
you gotta be there and you gotta work with them. Yeah, this bullying is a big
It's a beast.
problem.
It's a
And it's
beast.
everywhere.
Yes, it is.
It's everywhere.
Yes.
And I blame the authorities for not doing enough to try to correct the issue and problem.
Right.
Yeah. And tell us something about your book and how you approach the issue of bullying in your book. I mean, I don't want you don't have to tell us the whole thing because we want folks to read it. But you just
Okay.
give us a general idea of how you
Okay.
approach
So
it.
about the bullying, just the bullying right now. Okay.
Well, I'm starting with bullying. We can go back also to autism too. In fact, you can start with autism and go to book. However you want to do it.
Okay, so it's about autism, bullying, spiritual warfare. So there's 3 components to this book. And then there's also a lot of other little things that happened that were unexpected that were just kind of thrown in there as well, because that was part of the whole spiritual warfare. Because we all know spiritual warfare just makes the situation worse. It just makes your situation worse. That's the enemy just working on everything that's going on in your life, is making it worse. So autism, the book really is talking about autism, not from a clinical perspective, but it's talking about my journey with it and how I had to deal with the school system, the hospital system, battling those systems, and how there were things that were happening that were not acceptable, not appropriate, things that were just going on. And the reason I say in my trailer that, you know, this book is not just for people who have children with autism or bullying is because professionals need to read this. I mean, they really do. They need to see, hey, you know, this is not something I'm supposed to be doing in my profession. And the impact that some of these professionals had on my children was profound. It was extremely profound. When they could have made a difference or should have been able to make a difference in their authoritative position, they didn't. And that was a huge problem. So with my son with autism, that is the angle where I'm going with that, as far as the journey that he went through, how he encountered all of these different situations, transitional changes that were illegal, how he dealt with a lot of things, such as the hospitalizations that he went through, because he was hospitalized quite a few times. And he sustained abuse, you know, not only in the school system, but he sustained assault, child abuse through the hospital. And, you know, it was a lot. It was a lot that was going on. And it was a fight that a lot of parents would probably back down from because, you know, oh my God, the school system, they're so big, and, you know, they're not going to do this. Or the hospital, oh, they're overpowering. Yeah, they're overpowering, they're big, but what's wrong is wrong. And you have to fight for what's right for your child. And when their rights and your rights as a parent are being violated, you have to fight for that right, because no one has the right to treat your child unequally or unfair. There are, you know, disability rights in place for these children. And when you don't follow that protocol for those children properly, that's a problem, you know, because that's going to affect them long term, especially children with autism, because they have a mindset that a lot of times when something rubs them the wrong way, they don't want to ever have anything to do with it again, you know? So they should not have to feel that way. You know, this impedes a lot of success with children because that block is put up, you know, and things are not done on their behalf. And the same thing for bullying for my daughter. I had to fight for her because there were a lot of things that were going on that were not right. And, you know, these bullies were not being they were not being reprimanded. They were not, nothing was happening. Matter of fact, the principal was like, hey, I talked to the other parents and I don't think they're interested in meeting. Well, do they have an option? I mean, if their child is bullying my child and you're giving them the option to meet and then they say no, what happens? Do they just continue to bully my child? Parents should not have an option to intervene with doing the right thing to make sure that their child is not bullying another student. And they were given options. And there was never one time that any parents and I ever met. It was like really crazy that all this stuff was going on. And, sadly, bullying can lead to a lot of anxiety, depression. And in this situation for my daughter, she actually was in a major state of depression. And she ended up being hospitalized multiple times for depression. So it's serious. And then when you have, there are certain levels that you're supposed to go through to combat this. You're supposed to be able to, okay, well, if this didn't work, then you go to this person. Well, every time you go up the ladder, or at least when I went up the ladder, no results. And, when you have two children in the same house who have experienced traumatic experiences through either the school system, the hospital, and no one is doing anything, that's not okay. It's just not okay. So I really, I'm very passionate about this book because it's it was hard to write it. First of all, it was very difficult to write it because it's an experience that when I'm rehashing it and thinking about all that my children went through, it hurts. I mean, when I had to write about the hospital abuse for my son, I had to stop writing. I mean, there were days where I just had to stop for days or weeks or whatever, because it was so painful. And it was like, it was extremely emotional. It was an emotional roller coaster, literally. So I got through it, but it was definitely difficult and it was therapeutic at the same time, but it was really hard. So the mission of this book is really to encourage parents, first of all, so that they will know what to do, what I did to get through this, number one, and to also encourage other people that maybe don't have a child with bullying. Hey, look, if I see something wrong, I need to report it because this is serious. And for people who have no clue, this is just to bring awareness to them. So like I said, the only way a change is going to be made is if there is awareness. And this really is a huge message that affects so many people in the world. So I really want to get that out there in the right hands to everybody.
That is absolutely. When you say spiritual warfare, exactly what do you mean by spiritual warfare?
So spiritual warfare is what it is. I mean, you have to be a spiritual person to understand spiritual warfare and to know that it even exists. Because some people, they're just not spiritual and they don't believe in it, But, as a Christian, I am very in tune to spiritual warfare because I know that that's the enemy, AKA the devil, Satan. He is always acting on situations to make things worse in our life. Now, of course, he's invisible, so no one sees him. And because of that, it doesn't seem like it's real. So most people say, oh, you only see that in movies or in Halloween characters or whatever. But the reality is the devil is real and he is out there and he comes to kill, steal, and destroy, literally. And he has, I don't want to give him any credit, but the bottom line is in these situations where I was dealing with a lot of things going on with my children, the adversary has a way of intertwining in those situations, making those situations a lot worse. And when my children were going through what they were going through, a lot of times I didn't even think it was my children going through this. I believed that, something had taken over them and that they were acting out, because things were not, they were just not, acting out of character. And even in situations with your finances or in a lot of different situations that are not necessarily dealing with people, but your financial situation, you can become stagnant. And it's like, okay, well, the enemy is just kind of like holding me down because I can't seem to move or do anything. But then it's not always the enemy because God is invisible too. And sometimes God puts us in certain situations where he wants us to seek him and he wants us to point us in the direction of our purpose or our destiny. And in this situation, I feel really strongly that that is what was happening, because what I went through, it was just insane. It was crazy. When I tell people what I went through, they're like, are you serious? This is just unbelievable. But, you know, I really feel strongly that God pointed me in the direction. I don't want to say that he put spiritual warfare in my life. I really don't know. But the reality is he put me in this position where I am writing this book about autism, about the bullying. And I am talking about how the spiritual warfare took place in my own life so that others will hopefully be able to recognize it. So yes.
If a person happens to be Muslim, of course they have the same prophets, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but they're not Christians. Can they benefit from your book?
Absolutely. If that's even a word. Yes, they can. They will benefit from this book in an amazing way. Everyone who reads this book, I really, truly feel that it's designed to help everyone, because it's not, again, like for just parents with kids with autism and bullying, because they will benefit from it, I think, the most, because they are the ones dealing with these situations. But at the same time, there are a lot of family members like yourself. You have a grandson who has a child you have a grandson with autism. That's and right. a lot of caregivers. Then you have a lot of providers out there, and the providers who were providing for my children were doing some kind of crooked stuff. So, you know, it kind of makes everybody think about their own job and their capacity and how they can make a difference in these children's lives and in people's lives in general, and be more desensitized, because the world has become so they're just desensitized to I meant to say to become more sensitized, because they have become desensitized to the ways of the world when it's dealing with special needs children, especially if they're not dealing with it. It's like, okay, well, whatever. But, you know, people need to be aware. That's the bottom line.
The reason I ask that is because we have a lot of people coming into this country, might be from Afghanistan, that might be from Mexico, that come from different cultures, that might be Muslim, might be Hindu, and they're always treated different. They deal with some of the same issues. When you talk about bullying, they deal with bullying. You know, when you talk about autism, you know, they have those kinds of issues. And it just seemed to me your book, and I haven't read it yet, and I'm going. And I want to. First of all, how do I order your book? How do I get a hold? Can we put up that information from your website now? That explains exactly how to get a hold of it.
Okay, so you want to go to nocross-nocrown.com.
Okay. But we have we have a announcement.
Yes. Okay, there's a dash missing, so you have to put the dash. nocross-nocrown.com. Nocross-nocrown. Is that my website? Oh, it is my website.
Yes, we're putting it up.
Okay, I meant to put the dash. So nocross-nocrown. Yes, so that is the book, nocross-nocrown. You can go back and look at the trailer, and that is how you buy it. It is available everywhere. It's going to be on ebook. It's going to be pretty much in all bookstores and online and whatnot.
Now, it won't be available until October 26th. Is that correct?
October 26th is when it is going to be available, and you're able to pre-order right now.
But you can't pre-order. Fantastic. Yes. Let's throw it up again once, Chris. Let's show it again.
Yes, that's the book. And beautiful, you know, the images that you see there on the left-hand side is my son, and on the right is my daughter.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Who designed your cover? Did you do that?
I want to say the Holy Spirit showed me this cover before I even wrote the book.
Oh, so you designed the cover. That's beautiful. Well,
I had a vision of this cover, yes. And then that is what
you.
Yes, that's me.
All right. Okay. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. I think we've covered, you know, quite a bit. You will promote that. Will you be doing book tours? Will you be doing book signing?
I would love to. With the pandemic, I'm not sure how this is all working. This is all new to me. I'm a new author. I'm trying to get out there, trying to get the word out there. I'm trying to find connections where I can get involved in book clubs and things of that nature, and book signings. So I'm still looking for opportunities.
Well, how does one get in touch directly with you if they want to sign you up for, maybe we do some motivational speaking, some book signing? They can order your book, but how can they get a hold of you and be able to suggest that you do this?
Okay, so my official website, the no cross dash no crown, that's where you can .com, that's where you can order the book. My official website is tabithainspired.com. That's
Okay.
Tabitha, Tabitha, inspired with ed at the end .com. And on that page, there's a contact me page. So you just contact me, you send me an email through there and let me know what's going on, and I will be back in touch.
Well, you're very articulate, you're very straightforward. You know where you came from, you know where you're going to. And I think you would make an excellent speaker. And I will say that to my audience, you've heard it. This lady has a lot of information, and it's also spiritual. You know, it's I don't know how else to put it. And I think you would make a great orator. Maybe we can get you to come back maybe in another 6 months or so, just to see how
I'd love to.
things are going. But I've been very, very pleased with the information that you're sharing with our audience. We always try to bring things to the Richard James Show that's going to help somebody.
Yes,
That's what
definitely.
we're all about. It's not
Absolutely.
about my ego. It's not about, it's presenting information, giving folks the tool to deal with this journey called life.
Right.
It's not meant to last forever. But while we're here, we want to do some good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what is the name of your kids, by the way? What are their names?
My son is Elijah and my daughter's Nehemiah.
Okay, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Just my kids mean everything to me. Between my wife of 50 years and my grandchildren,
Wow.
and my great grandchildren, it just means everything to me. And obviously yours mean everything to you because your first book, and who did you feature? Your two children. That says a whole lot.
Yes,
well,
thank you.
Tabitha, I'm going to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I really had a great time. I enjoyed being here.
Well, thank you for the presentation. This point in the show, I raise up, I have a business, and I raise up my business at this point. It's called, and this is a picture of it. It's in the Lebanon Valley market, and this is a picture of the things that we sell at African Paradise. We sell African clothing, oils, we sell artifacts, tall giraffes, anything you want. And most of our stuff from all over Africa is from Kenya, is from Ghana, it's from Guinea-Bissau. We have original oil paintings there. And we ask our customers, please come and join us and help us to continue to survive so we be able to do shows like this and present it to people. And awesome. It's helpful. But so let's stay in touch.
Okay.
And anything that you're doing that we can support and that we can lift up, you let us know. And okay. We'll do it.
Oh, right. I want to mention one thing. My daughter wrote a book, okay, during her journey. And well, not during her journey, kind of after her journey. I kind of, had to get her to write this book because I knew it was therapeutic for her. Okay. But it's coming out this year as well. It's called Beauty and the Beast of Bullying.
I like that. And how old is she?
She's 16 now.
Fantastic. Oh, yeah. You're getting her started early. I think that's a fantastic. Okay, well, so
we're busy.
She's using her mind and spirit to deal with the issue also. Yes. I think it's absolutely profound. It's very, 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 very good. Well, who knows? Maybe your son might do that sometime.
Maybe so. It's also inspired my mom to write her book on miracles. My mom is 86 and she's going to have a book coming out as well. So we're going to be a whole house full of authors here.
Wait a minute. Mom's doing a book on miracles.
Miracles, yes.
A spiritual book.
Yes.
So we got a bunch of writers in the family.
Absolutely.
With something to say.
Yes.
There's something to lift up. That's absolutely fantastic. So anyway, but thanks again.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, you take care now.
All right. You too. Right.
Bye-bye. Take care.
All right.
Friends, we appreciate you tuning in. Again, these are to my listeners, people who tune into the Richard James Show. Every week, we try to give you something that you can use. And certainly this week, you'll have something that you can use. This young lady is extremely, not only brilliant, but spiritual and has something to offer all of us. And they'll say, we have, autism is exploding. Many kids and families are suffering, trying to deal with this issue of autism. Bullying has always exploded. Bullying has always been there. And to take a look at something that can be so painful and so hurtful and take a spiritual approach. When you say spiritual warfare, the devil, demons, whatever you want to call them, that do things that are wrong to people, have got to be thrown out front, have got to be recognized for who and what they are. And I just absolutely feel there's truly a blessing for this young lady to do and write what she is. And I'm very happy that she chose Richard James Show to raise up this issue and to deal with this problem. I'll say thanks again. All right, take care now.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Did you want to share anything else, Rich?
No.
Thank you again for tuning in to the Richard James Show. Our African and our African American programs are set up to educate you on what's going on in this world. And thank you for taking out the time to listen. Let's hear from you sometime also. So this is your neighbor and your friend signing off. Until I see you again next week and hear from you again next week. So long. God bless.
This is Carmen Henry Harris. You're listening to the Voice17104.com, faith-based, community-driven streaming media. Keep the faith and keep listening.